So the first part of this review is about matching quadratic functions to quadratic graphs in factored form. So I'm not going to do all of these for you, but I am going to show you or remind you how to use a zero product property when they're in factored form. All you do is get the factors, which are x plus 2 and x minus 6, and make them both equal to 0 and solve it. So if you solve the first one, you end up with x equals negative 2. And if you solve the second one, you end up with x equals positive 6. So if you see plus 2, the solution is negative 2. If you see minus 6, the solution is positive 6. So you would just look for the graph that touches the x-axis on these two spots, negative 2 and positive 6. Now, I'm not going to pick the graph for you, but I am going to show you number 2 and pick the graph for number 2. So the difference between number 1 and number 2 is that on number 1, there's 2 factors. But on number 2, there's 3 factors. See that x there? That just means that it touches the x-axis one more time. So instead of touching twice, like the first and the third, this one touches 3 times. Now, same logic to see where they touch. If it says minus 4, it touches positive 4. If it says x plus 7 on a factor, then it touches negative 7. And if you see an x by itself, then one of the solutions is 0. So it has to go through 0 as well. So that graph matches number 2 because it touches the x-axis 3 times rather than 2. So before I move on, main topic here, if you see 3 factors, it touches 3 times. To see where they touch, change the sign of the numbers in the parentheses. Any questions? All right, now let's move on to the second section. On number 4, I only put one question like number 4. So what I'm going to do is off here to the side, I'm going to show you 2 examples. One that ends up with a real solution and another one that ends up with no real solution. All right, so these are the 2 examples I'm going to review. So look at the first one. The goal here is to get x squared by itself. So we need to divide by 3 on both sides, and that leaves us with x squared equals 100. Now, usually to solve, you will put a square root on both sides, and that will be a solution. But they're not saying find the solutions. So really, all you have to look at is there a positive number or a negative number on the right side of the equal sign? If there's a positive number, once you have x squared by itself, if there's a positive number on the right side, then there is going to be a real solution. If there's a negative number on the right side, that's when it would be no real solution. So on the first one, we end up with x squared equals 100. So that does give you a real solution. We cannot check that box if that was one of the boxes. On the second one, to solve for x squared, you add 10 to both sides. We end up with x squared equals negative 15. Now this is the part that the calculator won't let you do because the square root of a negative number is not possible. It's not real. So here it goes. You're going to get no real solution when you end up with a negative on the right side. So now that you understand the concept, I'll show you one of the solutions here. The second box gets checked. Why does the second box get checked? Because x squared is by itself and we have a negative on the right side. That's all you're looking for to select the box. Get x squared by itself and see if there's a negative on the right hand side. Now any regular equation like this will have a real solution. which means you can't check the box because you're only checking the boxes on the no real solutions. Any questions before I move on? All right, now we're moving on to number 5, 6, and 7. So on 5, 6, and 7, on number 5, I'll give you some hints. Distribute, and what you always do after distributing, collect like terms. Those are your hints for number 5. Distribute and collect like terms. On number 6, again, you're going to distribute, but there's 2 terms to distribute. You have to distribute both numbers in the parentheses. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. Now we distribute the negative 4. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x again. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. Then you just collect like terms in the middle, and you're done. On number 7, I'm not going to show you anything because you do it just like number 6. You distribute the x to all of these terms, write down your results, then distribute the 3 to all of these terms, write down the results. You're going to have 6 results. Collect the like terms in the middle. Don't go ahead and do it already. Just follow along, and write down the hints I'm going to give you or ask questions now that you might have them. Now, please pay attention to number 8. Number 8 is very important. So on number 8, the equation says f of x equals x squared. Now, before I read the rest of it, understand that f of x is the same as saying y. So this could be y equals x squared, or this could be x squared equals y. It means the same thing because f of x means y. So now, the other piece of information they give us is that the range is between 64 and 144. So first of all, the range deals with possible y values. So if they're saying that the range is between 64 and 144, that means that the lowest possible y value is 64, and the highest possible y value is 144. So we can plug those numbers in for y separately. The solution on the top is going to give me my lowest possible x value. And the solution on the bottom is going to give me my greatest possible x value. And domain is what they're asking, which is possible x values. So this is all we have to do here, solve. What's the opposite of a square? A square root. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. We get x equals positive 8. Now on the next one, square root of 144 is positive 12. That tells you the answer is C, because the lowest possible x value is 8 and the highest possible x value is 12. Copy it down. All right, let's move on to number 9. Remember, this is an EOC review. Please pay close attention. So here, number 9. This is a question where you're not going to have to do any math. No math here. This is just a representation question. So, the function h of t equals negative 5.7t squared plus 3t plus 8 represents the height reached by a person jumping on a trampoline when x seconds have passed. What is the height of the trampoline? To calculate the height of the trampoline, you don't have to do any math, like I said. All you have to do is figure out what they're talking about. So first of all, if the trampoline's here and a person is jumping from the trampoline could represent the starting point because that's where he's jumping from. So that would be where he's starting the jump. What's another way we call starting point in this class? Y-intercept. The y-intercept in any equation is the constant, the number that has no variable on it. So like I said, no math required. If you want to know the height of the trampoline, which is the height of the starting point, the answer is the constant, the number that has no variable on it. So this could have been the height of a chair while you jump off of it. No matter what, the constant would have represented the height of your starting point, no matter what that is. All right, we're moving on to number 10. On number 10, they're asking for the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry is an equation of a vertical line. So it has to be x equals a number. You can't just put the value there. You have to put x equals because it is an imaginary vertical line. So it's an equation. Now, axis of symmetry is h. How do you find h? Negative b divided by 2 times a. So because they're asking for the axis of symmetry, that's all I have to do. Negative b over 2 times a. B is negative 17, and a is positive 2. Now you just solve that in the calculator. Whatever you get as your answer goes here in the box, and that's your axis of symmetry equation. Now what happens? On number 11, they're asking to find the maximum. The maximum is very different. All right, so on the number 11, they're asking for the maximum. Now, the good thing about finding the maximum is it's a step that you just did. To find the maximum, you have to find h first. So you have to do the same step, negative b over 2a. Then you plug in whatever you got for h for x. So whatever this gave you, you would have plugged it in for x in the equation. That's what you're going to do on number 11. So 2 steps on number 11. Negative b over 2a, then plug in what you get for x. Now look at number 12. Number 12, believe it or not, is the same thing as number 11. The steps for number 12 are the same exact steps for number 11. You're going to find negative b over 2h, and you're going to negative b over 2a, and you're going to plug it in for x. Same steps. How do I know that? Because they're asking for maximum. It doesn't matter if it's a word problem or if it's an equation. If they ask for maximum, these are the steps. Now, what I wanted to show you before starting you off on solving this is usually the axis of symmetry, this one, is time, seconds, right? But this word problem is an example where the x value is not seconds. Can anybody tell me what the x value is in this word problem? Anybody at home? No one? Okay, I appreciate it. So over here, the amount of lizards sold is the x value. So if they're asking for the axis of symmetry, it's actually the amount of lizards sold to reach the maximum profit. So for example, to answer part A, all you do is negative b over 2 times a. To solve part B, you do the same thing we did over there. Plug in h for x and solve or simplify. Wait till you guys ask me now to remind, Mister, can I make up this work? Every answer is going to be no, because I'm asking you to answer one simple question and I get crickets. I get no one answering. So don't come later asking me to make up work because you don't deserve it. How do you have the face to ask to make up work when I'm asking you to answer one question and you don't open your mouth? No chance. Don't worry, I won't ask any more questions. So here on 13, 14, and 15, I'm going to do number 15 for you. You'll do 13 on your own when you do the worksheet, but you can use the same steps I'm going to use on number 15. And then 14 I'll explain after. So on number 15, first step when you're trying to factor is look for a greatest common factor, because if there is one, you have to factor it out first. So 3 is the first number, 2 is not divisible by 3, so I can already skip that first step of factoring out the GCF. So now we put a line underneath the whole equation, and we break down the first and the last number. So the first number is 3x squared, which is 3x times 1x. The second number is negative 8, which is negative 4 times 2, or 4 times negative 2, one or the other. Only one way will work, so you have to cross multiply to test out if you got the correct middle term. 3x times 2 is 6x. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. 6 minus 4 is positive 2. Our middle number matches. Once your middle number matches, you have the answer here. The first binomial is the top portion, so 3x minus 4. Second binomial is the bottom part, x and a positive 2. So those are your factors for number 15. Now, we don't have to make them equal to 0 and solve, because they don't ask to factor and solve, or they don't ask to find the solutions right from the get. So you leave it like this. Now, number 14, the middle term is missing. When the middle term is missing, that's a clear sign that you have the same numbers on both parentheses, but one's plus, one's minus, because it needs to subtract itself to get rid of the middle term. This is what we call a difference of squares. So for example, what's the square root of x squared? X. So you put an x on both sides. What's the square root of 16? It's 4. So you put a 4 on both sides. And remember, for the middle term to be gone, one has to be plus, one has to be minus. That's it. Those are your factors. So just in case, my last class answered the question, but I'm not going to ask anymore. If you were doing x squared minus 25, then it would be x plus 5 in one parenthesis and x minus 5 in the other. Now for number 16, I'm going to do it for you. I'm going to do it for you two different ways, because I don't want you to have only one way to do these questions. I want you to have a safety blanket, a backup plan in case you forget how to factor or something happens that you just don't remember, you're nervous. So I'm going to teach you two different ways to do number 16 because it says solutions. So the first way we can solve, get solutions for this equation, is to factor and use the zero product property. Factor and use the zero product property. So let's use the same method we used for the first example. X times x is x squared. Now 60 could be 10 times 6, 20 times 3, 30 times 2. I'm going to stop right there because I know that I'm looking for numbers that can give me 4 in the middle, so it has to be 10 and 6. Now that's negative 60, so it's going to be 10 times 6, but one of them is negative. If the middle number is positive, the bigger number is positive, which means the negative goes on the 6. Now, if you cross multiply, it's going to give you 10x minus 6x, which equals 4x. Again, your middle number matches. So that tells you that the first set of factors is x plus 10. Second set of factors is x minus 6. Make them both equal to 0 and solve it. So if I'm going to solve x plus 10 equals 0, I subtract 10 from both sides and get negative 10 as a solution. If I try to solve x minus 6 equals 0 for x, I have to do plus 6 on both sides, so I end up with a positive 6 solution. Those are my two solutions, or x-intercepts. So that there is one method to find the solutions to that quadratic function. Now on the right side, I'm going to show you another method, which is the quadratic formula. Now to use the quadratic formula, all you have to do is memorize the song. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now we just label a, b, and c and plug them in where they go. So a is 1, b is 4, and c is negative 60. Now we just plug them in here. So here we got b on the first two parentheses. Next, we put the a value in the middle and the bottom. And the last one's always your c value, which is negative 60. Now, the bottom part is a 2. That stays like that. This left side is a negative 4. The only thing we actually have to simplify ourselves now is the radical, the square root part. So on the square root part over here, you have 4 to the second power, which is 16. But you can't start subtracting 4 here because there's multiplication to be done. So negative 4 times 1 goes first, which is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 60, positive 240. Now you put it together, it gives you 256. You press a square root button, and it gives you 16. Now this is what's going to get us both solutions. You just grab the calculator and use the plus sign. Negative 4 plus 16 divided by 2 equals positive 6. Now use the minus for the next one. Negative 4 minus 16 divided by 2 equals negative 10. Now if you compare your answers, same answers, right? But that's because it said solutions, right? But what if it said factor? Can you still use quadratic formula to factor? Technically you can. Why? Because if you know that the two solutions are positive 6 and negative 10, that means in here positive 6 was minus 6. And negative 10 in the parentheses was what? Positive 10. So even if you don't know how to factor, if you know quadratic formula, you can get solutions and backtrack the factors. Copy down the work before I move on to the next one. We're almost to 20. All right, now we are at number 18. Now, 18 is a bit special, so please pay attention if you want to pass the EOC. So on number 18, you have x squared minus 9 as the equation. That there is just like what we did on the previous page, a difference of squares, which means you have the same numbers on both sides, but one plus, one minus. So 9 is 3 times 3, so we know what numbers go in there. If you see positive 3 as a factor, what's the solution? Negative 3. If you see negative 3 as a solution as a factor, what's the solution? Positive 3. So my solutions are negative 3 comma 0 and 3 comma 0. We check the first box because that's true. Right? Now, remember what we saw at the beginning. If you have two factors, how many times does it touch the x-axis? Twice. But if you have an x out here, how many times does it touch the x-axis? 3 times, because that makes it one more time that it touches. Right? So, because that's not there, you know it only touches twice. Where does it touch? On these two spots. If you know it only touches these two spots, then can it touch this spot? No, because it only touches those other two spots. So we can't check the second box. Next, it's a vocabulary situation. Just reminding what a solution is in a quadratic function. So let's say here's your graph, and this here is your U shape, your quadratic function. What would be considered the solution to this U? Right here and right here where it touches the x-axis, right? That's what a solution is for a quadratic function, where it touches the x-axis. Is this a solution? No, it touches my parabola, but it's not a solution. So that tells you all points that touch the parabola are solutions. Is that true? Of course not. Only the ones that touch the x-axis. So we know that that is untrue also. Now let's see if this last one is true. The x-coordinate of the solution satisfies x is greater than or equal to negative 9. Let's see, what are my solutions? 3 and negative 3. Make sure they both satisfy. If they do, check it. So, is 3 greater than or equal to negative 9? Of course, 3 is bigger than 9. Is negative 3 greater than or equal to negative 9? Yes, because the bigger the negative number, the smaller it is. So negative 3 is a larger value than negative 9. Yes. Oh, oops. I read not and I put X. Correct. Good eye. Good eye, Johnny. So check, X, check. Any questions so far? All right, now, in this case on number 19, there are two ways to do it. One way I don't like, right? I don't want you spending 20 minutes on a problem you can do in 1 minute. Okay? So, although completing the square is technically the correct way to do this, don't do it that way. All right? So, here's a little hint here. All these answers, when you see a parenthesis with a square on it, this is very close to vertex form. So really, all I have to do is find the vertex on the equation, and whatever my numbers are here, one of them is going to be in the parentheses, and the other one is going to be my maximum. So watch how I match these answers once I find the vertex. How do you find the vertex? Which is h and k. Same thing we practiced on this worksheet already. Negative b divided by 2 times a, which gives you negative 4. You with me? Now, plug in the negative 4 into the equation. So negative 4 squared plus 8 times negative 4 plus 12. That gives me negative 4. I did it in my head, but that gives you negative 4, which means my k value is negative 4. Now watch. Vertex form is like this, right? So this number goes in here, but you change the sign. All of the answers say plus 4, so we know we did it right. And this number just goes right here. Everybody with me? Now what's missing from this answer and what we have over here? One thing. I notice I didn't say what number is missing. I said what is missing. What? The equal sign. So I'm going to put the equal sign here. What's on the right side of the equal sign if you don't see anything? Mm-hmm. 0. Very good. Now, all the answer choices have this number on the right side. So I got to move that minus 4. If I move minus 4, what does it become on this side? Positive 4. So which one's my answer? D. Now, just in case some of you fell in love with completing the square method, right? So you guys saw it and said, I love that method. I'll start you off so you can unlove it once you see how many steps I got to do, right? So here we go. To complete the square, you get into this format first, which just means that the constant has to be on the opposite side. So that's going to be x squared plus 8x equals negative 12 because I moved the 12 to the other side. You with me? Now I just add b over 2 squared to both sides. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. And 4 squared, 16. So I'm adding 16 to both sides. Everybody with me? Now on the left side, I have x squared plus 8x plus 16. And on the right side, I have positive 4. Now, this side could be factored to be x plus 4 squared. How do you know? Because whatever you get in your parentheses is what goes here. Bring your 4 down. Now we're almost at the end. What's the opposite of a square? Square root. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other. That leaves you with x plus 4 equals positive 2. And x plus 4 equals negative 2. Oh, we don't have to completely solve though. Right here we can pick out the answer. So what do we have? Before the square root, we can already select the answer. More. All right, so which one's that answer? Same answer that we got, D. So it's up to you. If you thought those steps are easier than these, then by all means, do it. I don't mind at all. But my opinion, especially on multiple choice questions, you're shaving 4 minutes off of this, 5 minutes at least, doing it the vertex method. But like I said, I won't get mad if you do it this method. It's about what you're comfortable with. All right. Now we get to the final question. On this one, we have no choice, right? We have to solve by completing the square. Correct? Why? What? Yes, it tells you to do it. Yes, it tells you to do it, right? But what if I tell you, do this math problem, but do it using 200 steps? What if you know how to do it in 5 steps? Are you going to listen to me? No, this is where you use your common sense. What do we got here? Answer choices. What are the answer choices telling you? Solutions. Is there another way to find the solution of a quadratic function? Factoring, zero product property. You could even graph it. uh, completing the square method, which they're asking for, or quadratic formula. If you use quadratic formula and if you use completing the square, aren't you going to get the same answer on both? Yeah. So which one should you use? The one you're most comfortable with. You with me? So over here, I'm going to do it both ways just to help you out, but I want you to choose the way you like the best. Okay? So because we just did completing the square right now, and it's fresh, let's do it again. Minus 2400 is the first step because the constant has to go to the opposite side. So we have negative 20x squared plus 160x equals negative 2400. With me? Now, a has to be 1. It can't be a number there. So you have to divide by negative 20. If you do it to one of the terms, do it to all of them. Now that gives you x squared minus 8x equals 120. So far, so good? Now, same process as we did before, but look how much easier this equation looks now than what it started off as, right? So the first two steps to get it into the right format make this a lot clearer, a lot easier to use. So now we can do it. 8 over 2 squared is what you got to add to both sides because 8 is b, or negative 8 is b. So negative 8 divided by 2 squared. So that's going to give me negative 4 squared, which is positive 16. That's what I add to both sides. The left side becomes something like this. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. That's always what goes in there, so you don't have to factor it yourself. Just put that number in there. And then 120 plus 16 is 136. We're almost there. Opposite of a square, square root. So now we're left with x minus 4 equals, what's the square root of 136? 11.7. So you put one equation with positive 11.7, and then you solve another equation with negative 11.7. That will give me my two answers. So let's see what ends up being my answer. Plus 4 to get x by itself, which gives you 15.7. And over here, plus 4 gives you negative 7.7. So which one has positive 15.7, negative 7.7? A. Now, there's a reason why I showed you how much simpler it gets when you do this, because when the numbers get really large, completing the square usually is the easier way to do it because the numbers shrink down quickly. Watch me do now, same answers we're going to get, but with quadratic formula. So quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Now, those are some big old numbers we're going to get. That doesn't mean you can't do it. You could definitely do it, but it's going to take you longer because it's bigger numbers and it's more possible mistakes because there's bigger numbers. But we got a calculator on this section, so who's to say you can't touch the right button on the calculator? Not me. So here we go. Let's solve it. The left side is still 160 negative. The bottom part is negative 40. That's not going to change. What we solve on quadratic formulas is what's in the radical. So 160 to the second power, I'm going to put it off to the side, is 25,600. -4 times -20 is +80, and +80 times 2,400 equals 192,000. Now add those up and press the square root button. 192,000 plus 25,600 equals 217,600. You press the square root button and we get 466.5. Now all you have to do is plug this in the calculator and solve twice. The first time using the positive, the second time using the negative. Now, when you do the top part, make sure you press equal sign before dividing by -40. If you don't press the equal sign, it'll only divide one number by -40. Your answer is going to be wrong. So how you do it in the calculator is 160 negative plus 466.5 divided by -40. It gives you -7.7. And then you do the same thing but with the minus. So 160 negative minus 466.5 equals divided by 40 negative equals 15.7. Same exact answers we got. So like I said, I don't mind which one you use. It doesn't matter to me. If you want to complete the square, complete the square. If you want to use quadratic formula, use quadratic formula. My recommendation, if you always use quadratic formula, then you're going to get really good at it and you won't make mistakes on it. Now, if you choose some problems complete the square, some problems quadratic formula, you might make a mistake on both because you're not comfortable with both. Okay? All right, so go ahead and finish the full worksheet, showing me work and everything. Don't worry about the notes being everywhere that you wrote down. It doesn't have to be neat. I just want to make sure you know how to do it. I'm going to put this video on Google Classroom for you in case you need to watch it or you're having internet issues or you couldn't hear me during the explanation.